2-minute warning, folks. 2-minute warning.
Just doing a mic check here. Hello.
Okay, folks, it's 12:30.
My wife, he's in Australia. Anyways, good luck. Yeah.
We have confirmation of quorum. We do. You have to excuse my voice today. Do call the meeting to order. I acknowledge that we're located on the traditional territory of the Lakota people, and we'll have the adoption of the agenda.
Move adoption.
Thank you.
Second.
Mr. Dahl,
Yeah, I'd like to move that we move the in-camera portion of the agenda to follow petitions and delegations.
thank you. Do I have a second? Second, thank you. Director Kerr, discussion? All in favor? Oh,
Does that mean before we even adopt the minutes and that kind of thing?
It will follow, the motion says follow petitions and delegations.
Okay.
Then we would go on camera, then we would come out, and then we would continue on with.
okay, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. So that the agenda for May 21st, 2025, regular council meeting board be adopted as amended.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Delegations. Mike Gall, spokesperson for Friends of Area C, will make a presentation regarding the inclusion of electoral Area C in the Strathcona service area. Mr. Gall.
Thank you to the board for inviting us today, or accepting us to come today. I just want to do a quick introduction here. My name is Mike Gall. My colleague is Bob Hartley. We're both members of a community group, Friends of Area C. This is a loose coalition of 250 Area C residents interested in the workings of the SRD and board as it relates to Area C projects and services. Working with us are retired judges, project management professionals, accountants, and interested parties of all kinds, providing feedback and commentary. Today, we are asking the board to consider the following petition with signatures collected over a 6-week period during March and February. We had 20 active canvassers going door to door, collecting signatures at special event signing tables and gathering signatures at multiple storefront locations. There are a total of 1,226 names. This is the petition. I would like to read the cover letter associated with this petition. Area C is a unique and separate community, miles apart from Campbell River. SRD priorities. Primarily, it is a rural lifestyle steeped in the appreciation of natural beauty and an island time existence, where community comes first. Although we lack services that many would take for granted, we choose a low-impact lifestyle as having a higher priority. The majority of residents live independent of centralized water systems, sewer hookups, natural gas connections, garbage pickup service, recycling at our door, and streetlights on every road. Some might consider these to be sacrifices, but for most Area C denizens, this is in fact desirable benefits. Further, we are separated from the broader SRD by the convenient inconvenience of BC ferries. Although on first blush, our worlds appear to be separated by a mere 15 minutes, in fact, ferry travel is always timed by the controlled chaos of bidirectional parking lot delays. Area C has a vibrant recreational opportunities. The extraordinary community-built Quadra Community Center is well utilized and provides a myriad of recreational possibilities, arts and entertainments and social services. These include tennis, pickleball, baseball, mountain bike trails, pump track, hiking, kids playground, climbing wall, yoga, and exercise classes. Cultural contributions include community theater, live music events, international movie nights, community dances, and ever-popular Wednesday community lunch. In the outer Discovery Islands, Surge Narrows is a remarkable off-grid equivalent. Both of these hubs provide valued community outreach and serve Area C residents well. Additionally, the Area C is a gateway to extensive outdoor recreation opportunities, with tens of thousands flocking to the area, experiencing the abundance of wildlife and natural beauty. Strathcona Gardens has amenities we do not. Therein lies the point. Living on the islands is different. Most residents came here with to live a rural lifestyle more in tune with their surroundings. If a pool and skating rink were paramount to our existence, we would have chosen to reside elsewhere. Residents of Area D and the City of Campbell River pay a hefty price for the privilege of having the Strathcona Garden service in their community. Currently, as the sole participants, Area D and the City of Campbell River voted to revitalize their facility and chose a $74 million proposal. Using the alternative approval process, residents of these two jurisdictions approved the borrowing of $64 million. Although the original Strathcona Gardens renovation proposal, as described in SRD board minutes, stated that the two phases of construction would likely be kept within the $74 million budget, it has now been decided that the second phase will require borrowing an additional $54 million. This borrowing and a total budget of nearly, this total $118 million worth of borrowing and a total budget nearing $130 million. Considering the current state of financial uncertainties, construction costs could creep even higher, begging the question, is this the wisest use of taxpayers' money? The notion of adding Area C to the Strathcona Garden Service area has been floated several times over the years. In light of the spiraling renovation costs and the ever higher expense of operating the facility, SRD board faces an acute dilemma of finding new revenue. Area C is ripe for the picking. However, if the strategy is fulfilled, this would mean an extraordinarily significant annual tax increase for our community. It would be the most expensive tax increase Area C ratepayers have ever faced, and for some, it could be devastating. It is my contention Area C utilization of Strathcona Gardens is exceptionally low, estimated at 1% or 2%. We have not been able to find any details to the contrary, as there is no admission gate survey having been conducted. We also believe for those residents of Area C who make use of the facility, our expectation is the same repetitive participants. When the expense of ferry transportation is added and the lack of bus service from the ferry terminal on the Campbell River side, the facility is simply too time inconvenient and expensive to access for the majority of Area C. Residents of Area C make great use of existing island-based, community-built recreation and service facilities and are proud of what is offered. If Area C residents choose to take advantage of Strathcona Gardens, few, if any, would object to an out-of-area user fee. To make such a decision without direct consultation is
Martin, can you mute?
Carry on.
Sorry about that.
If taxation is taxation without representation. We have neither been consulted nor consented to this non-essential service. This petition serves as constructive criticism for the implied SRD ambition to include Area C in the Strathcona Garden Service. We, the residents of Area C, vehemently object and respectfully request a formal Area C exclusive referendum prior to any future vote of inclusion in the Strathcona Garden Service. To you, Bob.
Good afternoon. After searching for the perfect community in which to retire, my wife and I found it on Quadra. Indoor swimming pools, arenas were not on our list of essentials to make our decision. Area C residents do not live on the same island as Strathcona Gardens Recreation Complex, and as such must use BC ferries or a private boat to reach Vancouver Island. I live in Harriet Bay and relate to my experience and can only imagine the exhausting experience of the other residents of Area C to reach Campbell River. The ferry fees for the two of us with a car to Campbell River during the week is $20.90. Thus, a swim for two would be $20.90 plus $4.40 each, totaling $29.70. Not cheap. In the previous 12 months, we spent $1,100 for the CR ferry, which averages out to one crossing per week. We travel out of necessity for dentists, optometrists, hospital services, shopping, etc. Our trips are purpose-driven. We do not go over or come over to Campbell River for entertainment, swimming, or skating. Based on our 2025 property assessment of our property tax would increase by $550 if Area C was included in the Strathcona Gardens service area. That is equivalent to 50% of our annual ferry budget. Is this reasonable? This tax increase would be the largest line item for local services, a line item that did not previously exist. This suggests that Area C was not included for Strathcona Garden Service Area tax dollars. What has changed? Granted, Strathcona Gardens is used by some folks from Area C, mostly from Quadra. Without an admission gate survey, it's estimated that only 1% to 2% of Area C residents use the Gardens facility. 2% would be a generous estimate. Imposing taxes for non-essential services on 99% of taxpayers is undemocratic and raises concern about fairness and representation. Additionally, Area C does not receive any economic benefit from Strathcona Gardens, unlike Campbell River. Governments have always or often viewed taxation as a straightforward method to boost revenues. However, this approach is only effective if the tax population consents. There are approximately 2,128 households in Area C. The petition, which garnered over 1,200 signatures, clearly proves that most Area C residents oppose the inclusion in Strathcona Gardens service area. This petition did not reach many of the more remote communities in Area C. There is ample precedent for municipal governments in British Columbia holding referendums on issues relating to the development or renovation of pools and recreation centers. Notably, Victoria conducted a referendum on the Crystal Pool, and the Regional District of Nanaimo held a referendum for the expansion of the Ravensong Aquatic Center. An exclusive Area C referendum would allow all eligible residents get a chance to vote and ensure broader participation. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Council or directors, do you have any questions? Director Mawhinney?
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to thank you for bringing your petition over, and it's really interesting to hear that there are so many signatories that you've had on your petition. I'm curious if there was, I see that the petition is requesting a specific exclusive referendum of Area C ratepayers, but I also noticed that you talked about you've talked to a lot of community members because you were doing in-person events and door-to-door and whatnot. Was there any other specific service that you heard from the people that you spoke with that they were interested in having on Quadra Island or in Area C?
I don't recall any specific service being discussed. So no, the answer would be no.
Okay, thank you.
Directors, any additional questions? No? Well, thank you very much, gentlemen, for showing up today. We appreciate your presentation. Thank you. Motion to receive.
Move receipt.
Oh, second.
Thank you. Second, Director Mawhinney. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. We will move into in-camera.
Do we have 2 delegations?
No. One is not showing.
Oh.
The second delegation has been a no-show.
Mr. Chairman, we have a staff report going into closed session.
We have a staff report going into closed session.
That would be under item U.
Item U. Where's that?
Near the end. Keep going. Keep going.
I will move that the closed session report from the CAO be received.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. B, that the meeting be closed to the public, consider matters deemed to fall within the parameters of subsections 90-1A, D, E, F, J, N, and O of the Community Charter.
So moved.
Thank you. Second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. We're going to get started here. We're just waiting for Director Dahl and Director Chapman. Excellent. Okay, we're on F. That the minutes of the regular meeting of the Regional Board held on April 23rd, 2025 be adopted.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? Director Mawhinney?
Thanks, Chair. It was just that the minutes showed that I was talking about a signed petition and that I made a motion to include a petition, but being fairly clear about the definition of the word petition by board standards, did not actually use the word petition in my motion, so I was hoping to have the minutes amended to reflect the language of the original motion, which was that the minutes be amended to include the list of signers presented by the delegation.
Okay, further discussion? That was a motion?
I'll second that.
Discussion? Director Colburn?
I'm just wondering what if it was, so I understand the intent was different, but if that was the actual verbatim in the recording, then that's not inaccurate. So I'm just wondering about the difference in that. If, when the minutes are recorded, if they are taken verbatim and then the intention was meant something else, then, yeah, I don't know how to deal with that.
CO?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I did review the minutes of the last meeting, and in fact, Director Mawhinney did refer to the list of signatories or list of signers, whatever. Now, staff paraphrased that. We often do with motions that are done on the fly. And we did check the original presenter, and she referred to it as petition, many times. So that's our fault for paraphrasing. If the board wishes to change the language to something different, they are certainly free to do that.
Not at all. I was just wondering if that, in that recording, and then we went back and changed it. So I was just making sure the recording lined up with the actual, that's all.
Okay,
Thank you
further
for the clarity.
discussion? All in favor? Opposed? One opposed? Director Chapman? The motion is carried. Business arising, none. Public consideration? Oh, there is business arising, sorry.
Hi, thank you, sorry. I do have an item of business arising from the minutes. At our last meeting, the Village Bay Lake payphone and other payphones like in Zabalis was discussed, and Directors Davis and Colburn shared issues regarding payphones in their communities, and Director Sinnott made a comment about the board writing a letter to the CRTC, sending a letter of complaint regarding removal of payphones when there is a lack of alternate service and a need for accessibility. So I would like to make a motion, as was the language essentially suggested by Director Sinnott, and I have provided it. Oh, there it is. That the board direct staff to write a letter of complaint to the regulator of TELUS, the CRTC, regarding TELUS decommissioning and removing payphones from areas where there is a lack of alternate service and an ongoing need for the phones for reasons of community safety and accessibility.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second that.
Director Wally, discussion? Director Bawini?
I would just like to add that I think that this lands really squarely within our strategic priorities area of advocacy, and it could prevent loss of life, and it affects not just Quadra Island, but other areas as well.
Director Chapman?
Thank you, Chair. It may not be technologically possible for TELUS to continue these services. They're eliminating their copper wire services unless this phone can be serviced by fiber optic. There may not be many alternatives available other than cell towers, so people have access. So
I think in this case, Mr. Chair, they do still have the availability of service. They just, it's just they don't feel it's worth their while. So I think in this case, they can maintain it. They just want somebody to subsidize the operation of it.
Okay, first Director Colburn, then Director Dahl.
And I'm just curious if we're, rubbing and duplicating, if we're doing some R&D on this, because I know that this has come up in other municipalities within the SRD, and I'm wondering if just a phone call would be to see what the other communities have done, or if that has already been something that has been investigated, or not that I want to take a whole bunch of time on this or anything. That's not what I'm saying, but just to back up what the communities are saying as well.
Yeah, I think there's with the CRTC, they take letters of complaint. That's how they deal with these things, and I'm certain there's dozens, if not hundreds, across the country. So,
Director Dahl?
Maybe it could say safety and accessibility where cellular is not an option.
yep.
I mean, I know that in Campbell River, there's areas where cellular is not an option, but the neighborhood voted against having a tower. So
Yeah.
if they vote against having a tower, should they have a payphone? In my opinion, no. But if they don't have a tower, then they should leave the payphone there until it becomes an option.
Yeah, that's a good point. In defense of Director Mooney, she'll tend to have lengthy resolutions, and I might have cut her off on this one because I understand it fairly well. So she may have had all that in there, and I cut her off halfway through.
Okay, Director Wally?
Yeah, I just had a thought. I'm in favor of this, but my cell phone that the regional district just generously provided for me, I can text by satellite anywhere on planet Earth.
Yeah, when we get the bill, we'll let you know.
Yeah. Glad you're paying for it.
Yeah, that. There is that ability, yeah, but it's super expensive. Yeah. How many calls did you make?
Okay.
Okay. So on business arising, on Director Mowini's motion, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Okay, no public consideration, notice of motions, no chair's report, consent, committee chair's report. Strathcona Gardens Commission, that the draft minutes of the regular meeting of Strathcona Gardens Commission held on April 23rd, 2025 be received.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, Director Von Esch, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Electoral Area B, Advisory and Planning Commission, that the draft minutes of the inaugural meeting of the Electoral Area B Advisory Planning Committee held on April 29th, 2025 be received.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Committee of the Whole, that the draft minutes of the inaugural meeting of the Committee of the Whole held on April 30th, 2025 be received.
So moved.
Second.
Director Von Esch, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Community Health and Wellness Committee, that the draft minutes of the inaugural meeting of the Community Health and Wellness Committee on May 1st, 2025 be received.
Move receipt?
Director
Second.
Wally, Director Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Electoral Area Service Committee, that the minutes of the regular meeting of the Electoral Area Service Committee held on May 7th, 2025 be received. Director Wally, Director Mowini, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Rice, do you want to take N?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move item 1, environmentally sensitive area development permit application DP3D24 Timber West. I'd like to move that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Second.
Director Chapman, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I'd like to move option B, that the environmentally sensitive area development permit DP3D24 Timber West, as attached to the May 12th, 2025 report from the Chief Administration Officer, be approved.
Director Chapman, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Wally, take number 2, please.
Volunteer and Composite Fire Departments, UBCM funding, that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Director Mowini, discussion.
I think Mr. Koopman will speak to this.
Through the chair, the board had asked for a follow-up report on a provincial news release on the October 2024 Volunteer and Composite Fire Department grant that they received at a meeting 2 months ago. This is the follow-up to that request. It states who the successful applicants that served the SRD were this time around, the regional district's role in helping fire departments apply for the previous 2 intakes of this grant prior to the 2024 intake, and the role that our regional fire admin service, the Deputy Chief of Training and Safety, is how they are assisting the fire departments with implementing their projects through the grant. And I'm available through any questions.
Directors, any questions for Mr. Koopman? No? Director Colburn?
It says in the report that the details regarding the funding intake for 2025 haven't been announced. And then when we do get that announcement and it does go further into that, then will you bring another report to us stating how future funds may be used?
Through the chair. So the regional district itself has not been allowed to apply for this grant to the past because we have never been the authority having jurisdiction over a fire department. How we intend to utilize this grant to support the Sayward Fire Department, which is now under the regional district's jurisdiction, would be brought before the board. There wouldn't be any intentions to bring how Zabalis, Gold River, Campbell River intend to utilize this grant, but that's not to say I couldn't do so if the board is interested.
Director Wally?
Yeah, I just want to take this opportunity to publicly thank Sean Koopman for his work for the Saybrook Fire Department. It's really looking good. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? On receipt? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Von Esch, take number 3, please.
Quas Park Beaver Coexistence / Flood Mitigation Contract Award. I move that the report from the CAO be received.
Director Mawhinney, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I'll move that the contract for the Quas Park Beaver Coexistent Flood Mitigation Project be awarded to Rewilding Water and Earth Incorporated based on its response to RFP 0225, and that the chair and corporate officer be authorized to execute the contract.
Director Mawhinney, discussion? Director Von Esch?
I'll just say it's great that they found a local business to be able to do this, and I'm familiar with the business. They do great work, so excited to see this project move forward.
Thank you. Further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Dahl, number 4, please.
That the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Director Chapman, second. Discussion.
So, Mr. Chair, we have the Just Like Home Lodge and the Workforce Project developing, going on, pre-design and design is being completed, consultation with the city, and we anticipate in the summer we will make our building permit application. And in the past, we've taken an opportunity as the permit and DCC's costs add to the project. We've made a request to Campbell River Council in the past if they can have a look at this and if there's any chance they can waive or reduce fees towards the project.
Okay, further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B.
That the board supports sending a formal request to the City of Campbell River to cover the building permit fees and any development cost charges for the Just Like Home Lodge and Workforce Housing Project.
Second.
Director Von Esch, discussion. Director Dahl.
Just want to point out that this would be 100% cost to the City of Campbell River. It wouldn't be a 70-30 split. So I just want to make sure everyone's aware that we haven't forgot that we will be the ones paying the entire cost if we say yes to this.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? You're opposed? Director Chapman is opposed. 1 opposed. Motion's carried. Director Mawhinney, take number 5, please.
Working with nonprofit housing societies, that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Oh, sorry, Director Mawhinney.
Sorry, thank you. I wanted to say thank you for the report, and I really appreciate how quickly it was returned to the board. Thank you very much to staff for that. And I do have just a couple of quick questions. So from a process perspective, if there is a party who is interested in making a land donation, is there a specific staff member or a path that I would point a potential donee to? Like, would that be the CAO, or is there a preferable process?
Yeah, I think because land donation likely starts confidential, there's usually often some strings attached to it or requests made that they would submit it to myself.
Okay, great, thank you. And what I didn't see covered in here was I wasn't, and I was just curious if you could identify if there are costs that are incurred by the person or entity donating the land.
Mike might be better equipped to talk that, but I think in previously, like if there's a donation, we can give a tax receipt because I think there's a tax implication to those donating there. So it depends. I mean, on as we talked about earlier, that there's might be a differentiation between what they paid and what it's worth and the tax receipt. So there can be certainly, but it depends on each situation. So.
Okay. Thank you very much.
On receipt, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Director Von Esch, take number 6, please.
Village Commons Project, Cortez Island gas tax funding request. I move that the report from the CAO be received.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
I'll move that a contract with the Cortez Island Community Foundation to provide gas tax funding for the Village Commons project on Cortez Island be prepared for the board's consideration.
Director Mawhinney, discussion? All in favor? Oh, discussion, sorry. Director Chapman?
This discussion, I'm not saying this is not a worthwhile project, but is this the highest and best use of these of these funds? And here's where I'm coming from, just so I don't appear to be an ogre. It was in about 1989, municipalities and regional districts, especially municipalities, argued with the federal government that some of the gas tax money should come back to municipalities because a survey said 72% of roads traveled in Canada were municipal roads. Some were provincial, some were federal. That was the start of the argument to get gas tax money back. Then when the federal government agreed, then it could only be used for green projects. And we went through that gyration with the feds and the province, and now the field has been broadened out. So my question is this the highest and best use for these funds? Have we looked at other alternatives? Do we know what might be coming up in the future? Hopefully we're just not grasping at the first thing that comes up.
I'm going to redirect that to Director Von Esch.
Thank you, CAO. Yeah, the project is something that's happening in the downtown core of Madson's Landing to create a sort of a pavilion for events to happen that we currently don't really have. It's got a big support in the community and a lot of funds. It's $1 million project, and this funding will help complete the project. So yeah, I think it's one of a number of things that are important in the community, and this is one of them.
Director Chapman? Then Director Lanyon.
Oh, I've already spoken to it, so I'll let Director Lanyon go first. I'll take seconds later.
Okay, Director Lanyon?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, looked at the project closely. Awesome project, by the way. Really cool. So I guess the question I have is, it just seemed like there may have been some uncertainty as to whether this would meet the criteria for gas tax funding, and if it was later found not to, then we just have to replace that money within the gas tax fund. And so I guess I'm just confirming that if that were to happen, the money would come out of Area D capital funds, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm fairly confident this meets the gas tax criteria, and I think Director Von Esch will attest to when we fear it doesn't, we're the first to jump all over that. But I'm quite confident this does. But I anticipate, in a mishap like that, there could be, it has to be a service to draw something from. So for this, there's not a service. This is a structure that. Society on Cortez is running, so we don't have any requisition authority out of there. But I will say, and I'm sure Director Vanesh will attest to, if we're not confident, we wouldn't issue the check.
Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. Well, that was what I wanted to touch on next, was that this is for something that we don't have any authority to operate or manage or control or anything like that. So it's not a service established by the regional district. So we are able to fund something that we don't have control on.
We can. I mean, NGOs are not excluded from that. There is a lengthy criteria, as our CFO has outlined here very well. But again, examining this one, I think we're on solid ground in terms of funding it. And it's just to, I believe it was a REDIP grant that they got some money for. Costs were more than anticipated, and so this is money to supplement that for the physical structure.
Any further comments? No? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Number 7, Ms. Director Vanesh.
Cortez Island Multi-Use Sports Court, I move that the report from the CAO be received.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I'll move that staff work with the Southern Cortez Community Association to obtain information regarding outstanding requirements and to develop a subsequent lease agreement as necessary to ensure eligibility for gas tax funding.
Director Mawhinney, discussion? Director Chapman?
Yeah, I hate to harp on it, but the projects that we're funding from gas tax, in my opinion, should be having an impact regionally. I know this is, who's this? Is this in Cortez? Yeah. So it's more designed specifically for Cortez, which is fine. But part of the direction the city of Campbell River wanted to go to earlier in the year was that to have gas tax money be used for more regional services, regional functions, regional issues. So I know this is, I'm sure it's worthwhile doing this, but I'm not comfortable having the electoral areas just use gas tax for something in their area only, and there's nothing to benefit the region as a whole.
Thank you. Any further comments? Director Wally?
Yeah, just in response to the director there, obviously the municipalities get massive amounts of gas tax compared to the electoral areas. And they may believe they use that money regionally, but I think it's the same situation. You use it for whatever is paramount to support the residents of your own jurisdiction, first and foremost. I think that's the way it ought to be.
Okay, any further discussion?
Yeah, I would just maybe add that, I think sometimes with projects, with all the projects that we're looking at, often they just happen in one community. And when something's good for that community, we can say that it's good for the whole region. So I think just because it's a project that's happening in electoral area B doesn't mean it's not good for the SRD.
Director Lanyon.
Sure, and just a bit more texture from my brain on this. Since we are essentially prorating the gas tax funds throughout the whole region, I feel like we do achieve in the end, after it's all spent, a regionally distributed benefit. And so I don't have any direct criticism over this. I just think the bigger question to me is, is there a long-term plan on efficiently using those funds? Because it does seem like the projects that come are they're not I don't know, they don't necessarily adhere to a cohesive understanding of how the money will be used. It just kind of builds up evenly over time and gets spent sporadically on projects as needed. So I just don't want us to be missing out on something that has enormous regional benefit because instead we are spending it on smaller increments. So I don't know if there is a long-term capital plan.
No, that's a good point, if I can, Mr. Chair, address that, because it's something we're going to look at financial planning this year, because there is a criteria within, the gas tax comes up with new criteria every year, and projects need to be part of a long-term capital plan. And you're right, for years and years and years, not just us, you look for a shiny object project, say that's great, let's redirect it there. There's no long-term vision. You're required to have these projects earmarked for in your long-term financial plan. So I've shared with different directors at times that we need to identify more things than you need to, but identify a criteria and a priority of projects that we can point to, because it's going to get to the point where we're going to be asked to say, how does this fit into your long-term plan? Because I don't see it in your 5-year plan, and it never existed before. So we're going to have to put a higher lens on that this year's financial planning, so that we come back and you ask that question, you say, where'd this pickleball court lie? Well, I say, well, it's number 2 in the financial plan, and we identified it. If it's not, you have a fair comment to say, well, you're just looking for a shiny object to spend money on, how important it is. So we're going to put a focus on that this year for sure.
Okay, first, Director Wally.
Yeah, I'd like to remind the board that electoral area gets so little amounts each year of gas tax that little communities like, say, Cayuga, that's got 20 homes in it on a year-round basis, they'll never be a regional priority. And yet, they have infrastructure that they absolutely need. It's critical to them. We need to come up with a system now to provide water to that Walters Island. It may require some gas tax funding there. That'll never be a regional priority, 20 homes, but yet it's absolutely essential. So we have to save up these little bits we get from year to year until we have enough to be able to fund a project that is important to us. Thanks.
Director Wally, then Director Mawhinney. Director Dahl, then Director Mawhinney.
I just wanted to point out, since Director Wally likes to talk about Campbell River's gas tax and how much we get, that until this year, the unallocated funds that the city paid of $1.8 million a year was $120,000 less than we get in gas tax. So we would have been better off to not been involved in that.
Director Mawhinney.
Okay, thank you. I think my question was really for the CAO, because we're talking about gas tax funding and allocations. And I understood that in our financial plan that we have this year, that we have, as the electoral areas, allocated our gas tax funding. I know, at least for Area C, we have, that it goes all the way up to 2025 because,
Yeah.
or sorry, to 2030.
Yeah, know what I'm talking about. So just for Cortez, when we did financial planning, if this was part of the financial plan, we could identify and say, yeah, it was. But not just Cortez, there's some we have, but others we haven't. So, and you have unallocated money. But what they want you to do now is have a list that I suppose exceeds the amount of money you have. And so you can say, these are priorities, and then you can allocate your funding within that. But if you don't have it on a list, how important is it? Right? And so some of the projects that are coming forward, now this project was funded, not this one, the previous one was funded through another program. So that's not really fair on that. But if you had a pickleball court as part of your 5-year plan, but you didn't have any funds for it, that's great. It's you've identified it as a priority. So have more projects than you have funding, and you can say, these are the important projects. We don't have funding for them all, but they're identified. Right now, if a project comes forward, we say, yeah, it looks great, and we hadn't thought about it before. And they're saying, you need to look forward and put these into a 5-year plan and then identify them. And if they're not identified in a 5-year plan, they're saying they can't be really that important from you. You're not looking far enough into the horizon, so you shouldn't be funding it.
Okay, great. So we're going to be working on that at the Electoral Area Services Committee coming
Yeah.
up in this fall, I guess?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that.
Okay, Director Wally.
just one quick comment came to mind there. If you recall, I think it was last year that the Sayre Fish and Game Department had a major break-in and theft, and it took $12,000 of gas tax to replace their equipment to keep their fish hatchery going and so on, which I'm sure is a regional benefit. But there's no way that could be foreseen to be on a plan, so we need to have, I mean, we could allocate other stuff, I guess, and change the allocation. Maybe that's the way it worked. But there are things come along that are essential that aren't on the plan from time to time. That's got to happen.
Okay, so Director Von Esch?
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate the clarity on how to move forward, getting these established in the financial plan at the beginning of the year. Look forward to that next year. And for this particular project, this is something that I put in the capital plan, so it is, and Mike, maybe you can confirm that, it was something that we allocated when we went through the development of the financial plan.
Okay. So call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Mawhinney, number 8.
Transport Canada Wharves renovation cost results, that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Second.
Director Goldberg, discussion?
I think Sheena will attempt to explain it. Now, we got a lot of balls in the air, and they're landing very quickly. And so Sheena has done a lot of great work in a short amount of time, and what I believe has come up with an amazing solution that benefits Area C and all of us in the region, speaking about regional benefit, because there are wharves that mariners all through the region can do. So before she does, I just want to say this has been 10 years of work trying. We've accepted Transport Canada funding over 10 years ago. We finally have come to a point where we are going to fund the 3 wharves. We're going to meet the needs of the community in that we're going to divest one of the wharves to the Cloitzes First Nation after we upgrade it, which they are thrilled are. And so we'll all have access to the Port Neville Wharf. And found a home and finances to build the 2 Surge Narrows and Owen Bay wharves, and finally wrap a bow around this and build these 3 wharves. And it has been a ton of work, and I think what we have today is an amazing conclusion thanks to the work of Sheena and Wolf.
Okay.
Thank you. Through the chair to the directors. Just echoing the statements from our CAO there. I've only been with this project for about 3 years, but in having worked with the community members who these wharves serve, I can really appreciate how essential they are and how excited I hope everybody is to move this forward. As the CAO alluded, there's been a lot of moving parts to this, which is why we had the supplemental report that we were able to append yesterday that substantially changed our recommendation, but I think very much for the better. So we ran a request for quotation process. It lasted for about 5 weeks and concluded in early May. We were pretty quickly realized that of the 4 submissions that we received, all of them were over budget in one way or another. Only one of them was marginally in budget. After interviewing the 3 lowest bidders, we were quite confident with the low bid. Originally, we were a little bit unsure as to why their pricing came in so low, but through the interview, it was discovered that they actually have a large project out on the east side of Quadra, so they're essentially already mobilized, and another project is carrying their live-out allowance costs, which is why we were able to get such a good deal on this. So originally, it came in with significant lack of funding for the Port Neville Wharf, which is why it was originally excluded from the recommendation. Early yesterday morning, we received response from Transport Canada. They accepted our request to use the excessive funding we had for the Surge Narrows facility in order to fund the Port Neville. And largely that was based on the fact that we're divesting it to a First Nations, and it aligns with a lot of the recommendations under DRIPA and UNDRIP in order to support those communities. So with that, we were able to append the supplemental report where we have enough money if there's a modest increase to the gas tax funding for Owen Bay that should be offset by no longer requiring any gas tax for Surge Narrows. We will be able to complete all 3 ports within the available funding, and they're targeting to do the work in the fall fisheries window, so we should see substantial work before the end of the year. So the recommendation is to award to our low bidder, which was Pacific Industrial Marine. And I'm happy to take any other questions that folks might have about the content of the report. Thank you.
Director Mawhinney.
Thank you, Chair. And huge gratitude to the engineering team, to Sheena and Wolf. Thank you so much. I'm really excited, and I know the communities are going to be really excited too to be moving forward with this project. It's been a long time coming. And just thank you so much for working so diligently to have these wharves continue to get people home. So thank you. And I know there's been a fair amount of communication between the community members of the Outer Islands and staff regarding the finer details of the project. And I wanted to say thank you, Sheena, for responding to so many of those concerns that have been sent into you, of which there may even be more that I'm unaware of. And I was aware that there's a bit of a communication around a large barge that they're curious about accessing. And I was just wondering if that there seems to be community concern that this, I don't know, extra large barge that brings in aggregate for road construction may or may not be able to make it in afterwards. I was curious if you had any update on that or
I haven't had any conversations with the barge operator since the meetings that I had in early May, where Inlet Transport and Inlet Navigation and Marine Link owners both confirmed that the revisions to the design at the Owen Bay dock was satisfactory for their operations.
Okay, thank you very much. And my other question, well, I actually have two other questions. So the first one is if we're reallocating the funds towards Port Neville, I couldn't tell from the supplemental report if that meant that the optional scope piece will now be included or not.
It is, and just for clarification for the committee and anybody listening, the optional scope piece was a float plane landing that is currently part of the facility that when we had our earlier cost estimating done, we anticipated we would not have sufficient funding for. So we included it as optional in the tender, as that allows us to remove it from scope without receiving any penalties for decreasing the scope. But yes, indirect, to clarify, the entire facility at Port Neville will be rebuilt like for like. If the motion is passed today.
Okay, well, I hope it is. And my last question is about the Surge Narrows revitalization project. It's same place, Surge Narrows, just slightly few meters over. And it has a wharf component, so I'm not, you've given a little bit of clarity on the project scope timeline for these wharves. And I'm wondering if there is any consideration for somehow including the revitalization wharf works with the same contractor. So there might be cost savings, as you've indicated, as part of the benefits of this contractor at the moment.
I can't speak to the particulars of that particular project as it is being managed by Community Services, but I do know that the project that PIM is working on is local and will be multiple years. So there is, I think, an opportunity to receive the economy of scale or the efficiency fund pricing that we received due to them already being mobilized fairly close to the area.
Oh, that's very encouraging. Thank you.
Anyone else? No, thank you very much. On receipt, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B.
I will move that the supplementary report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. C.
I'll move that the Chair and Corporate Officer be authorized to execute a contract with Pacific Industrial Marine for $2,149,590.30 to repair the wharf facilities at Surge Narrows, Owen Bay, and Port Neville.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
And I will move that the Area C Community Works gas tax allocation for the Owen Bay Wharf repair be increased from $117,000 to $120,000.
Second, Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
If I can, Mr. Chair, just quickly on that. So we had a $43,000 allocation from gas tax to Surge Narrows, and we'll just return that to the pot.
Okay. Number 9, Director Mawhinney.
I'll do this one. It's Cortez. Electoral Area B, active transportation, and move that the report from the CAO be received.
Second.
Discussion?
I did have one question. I know that in 2022, there was a transportation study done for Cortez by the SRD. I'm just wondering how that study would be incorporated into this. And it's my understanding that this study that we're about to undertake is a prerequisite to actually get funding to implement projects, but just curious around how that 2022 study plays a role.
Thank you, through the chair. That previous work ends up being a bit of the context for the Active Transportation Network Plan. So ultimately what it means is that this plan going forward was a little bit less expensive because it has a slightly smaller scope. So they will be affirming everything that is in that previous report and filling any gaps that may exist, but otherwise continuing from that point.
Great, thank you.
Okay, further discussion on receipt? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B.
I'll move that the 2025 to 29 financial plan be amended to incorporate $50,000 from the BC Active Transportation Network Plan Grant Program and up to $50,000 from the Electoral Area B Community Works Fund to fund the activities approved as part of the application to this program.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I'll move that ISL Engineering and Land Services Limited be awarded the contract to carry out the Electoral Area B Active Transportation Network Plan project per its response to RFP 0425.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Rice, number 10.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move option 10, Electoral Area D Active Transportation, that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B.
I'd like to move option B, that the 2025 to 2029 financial plan be amended to incorporate $50,000 from BC Active Transportation Network Plant Grant Program to supplement the funding previously approved within the 2025-2029 financial plan.
Second.
Director Mawhinney, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I'd like to move option C, that Ely's and Associates Consulting Limited be awarded the contract to carry out the Electoral Area D Active Transportation Network Plan project per its response to RFP 0325.
Director Chapman, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Lanyon, number 11.
I move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Second.
Director Chapman?
And I think Mr. Yates will speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the report simply points out that the board has a policy regarding the receipt of petitions, and they did attach to a previous set of board minutes a petition that doesn't meet those guidelines. And the question is whether simply the board wants to maintain that policy in its present form, make changes to it, or eliminate it. So those are the choices really from a staff perspective. Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Now we have options. Continue on, Director Rice? No? Wasn't that Director Rice? Oh, Director Lanyon, sorry.
Could we maybe have a discussion first?
Yeah, you can have, well, yeah, I think you missed that.
Did I miss that? I'm sorry.
I don't think you did, but I'm wondering, if it seems to be in this day and age that does make sense to have signatures come in a digital way. I'm kind of looking to staff here or ideas from other folks around the board on how to do this. I think, it's important to note petitions are petitions. We can disregard them or follow them. So it's just a way of getting input from the community. And it seems like if we can make this more open, then it's a great way for more people to be involved. But love to hear what other folks have to say.
If this has any impact or influence, maybe Julie can help too. But I think the board directed us to come up with a policy on the petitions is because a number of years ago we were getting a lot of quote unquote petitions, and they had, you know, similar handwriting on them, and they might have been mass produced, and so it was a way for the board to kind of validate, if we're going to receive a petition, how can we you know, improve the integrity of it and be more convinced, I think, that, you know, these are individuals signing something. So it was just a way to try and filter out, you know, these petitions with just, you know, that are blanket created by either an individual or AI or whatever it is.
Director Colburn?
So, yeah, I did, I was hoping, I'm glad that, you know, we didn't let this slip by. And I was here at the board when we did that. But along with that, with technology and our far-ranging borders of our participation of our members, I don't think it was meant to be something that was prohibitive to people. It was just a way of making people accountable, making them have integrity, as the CAO said. So I'd be interested in what the board's feelings are in kind of ways that we can do that moving forward, where there is a standard PDF form that is a fillable, or there's got to be some way out there that will allow for these kinds of things to happen for people that cannot physically come to sign something. So it's great we're having this conversation, because in this day and age, things should be more accessible.
Director Lanyon? Yeah, sorry, I did. Director Wally first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, in areas like Quadra and outlying islands, and even in Area A, where I've got Duncan Bay and Rays Point and all those different areas, it's not practical to go door to door and try and get signatures. But to verify the legitimacy of a electronic petition, they have their address, we have their return email, and I think if there's anything suspicious there, or they should perhaps even include a phone number, we could just check once and again here and there, see, is this valid? So I think there's other ways to determine besides physical signatures.
Thank you. Director Lanyon?
Sure, yeah. I think if the board is relying on a petition in its decision-making, or to influence it in a significant way, and it would be issue-by-issue basis, it would actually be a good step for staff to be able to indicate, you know, we've sampled a small percentage of these people and made actual contact with them to verify they signed this petition. So I think on a sample basis, we can validate without having to go through the entire list. And you could even cherry pick names that you're like, really? So, you know.
Yeah, it's a good point you bring up, because a couple things come to my mind in validating them. Elections BC, for example, we've had a couple instances of trying to validate declarations of people signing, and the RCMP having trouble chasing them down. It's not easy. And so I think the point you made first is really important, is that, is the board going to make decisions on these, or is it information? And I think that's two critical things. Like the folks that presented here, they brought a petition. We don't have any decision making based on that, but it's certainly information for you to put in your brain and consider. So I think if we're going to create a policy, we may want to think about decision making or information, because those are two critical things. If you're doing it on decision making, people that generally support petitions have got a lot of energy and effort, and that could be put towards having decisions skewed a certain way, which is likely what you don't want. So happy to bring something forward if the board, but I think, yeah, the question you have to have is information or decision making. Those are two different policies. It can go sideways, certainly, if you make it petitions, decision making, you know, in terms of the things that people present petitions here for.
Just want to add to, like, you know, so much of a petition's response depends on the preamble and the way it's presented to that person. So I am leery about making any decisions based on petition unless I've read all of that and understand it. Yeah.
It's Director Von Esch first and then Director Wally.
Yeah, I really appreciate the discussion here. Just want to add to the discussion is, like when we do surveys as well, like I recently did like a survey to the community of whether we should consider a maximum house size in our zoning bylaw. And, people had questions around, who's filling it out and are these legitimate? And I think there's maybe some connection there on our policy for petitions and surveys. I really like Ben's idea of you do a sample size, you phone 1% of them and verify them. But I think this is a worthy discussion both on petitions, but also, how we survey our communities.
So I just want to give you one example in terms of petitions. So there's a way to get elector assent by petition. So 50% of the petitions representing 50% of the property values. So in terms of that, you only need 50 plus, one in order to pass, and that legislatively passes the test. Now, I've worked in other regional districts where they say, that's fine and dandy, but in decision-making, unless I get 70% of it, you can forget it, right? So there is a different internal bar to be looked at on decision-making because I can't think of all of them right now, but you could get stuck with something if you make a policy based on petitions and you decision-make on, 51%, something might reveal itself that you didn't think about.
Okay, Director Wally.
Yeah, I just want to remember that in our current public hearings, most of those comments are done electronically, and we base our decisions on what the majority of those people say if they have a valid argument. And so we're already doing that, and I don't think we ever are going to verify whether that constituent is real or not. So that's the current status.
Director.
Well, if I can, you may be Director Wally, but are people, let's say, I can think of many instances, maybe one happened on Quadra Island with a different director, and there was a lot of, written submissions wanting option A, and yet I remember decision-making for decision B. And so that just comes to mind again about it's not hard and fast and there's reason to be cautious. Again, maybe some others inspire, but I'd be defensive about the decision making.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but I think what we do when we evaluate the comments, electronic ones, is not the volume of 70% yes and 30% no, but it's the quality of the comments and the validity of the arguments. But it's still an electronic answer, and we have no way of verifying what the person said is a real person or not, or if they live I guess it doesn't matter where they live for public hearing, but whether they're a valid or somebody made it up and sent in 10.
Director Colburn.
Well, it's an interesting conversation because I don't think that there was a reason why we made this policy to begin with, right? So I don't think the whole thing should be repealed. But there's also an equity in, that it be equitable for people to share their views, right? So I'm kind of, I don't want to necessarily eliminate the requirement for original signature, but I'm coming up against that there's got to be some way to do that to check and balance, and whether instead of whether we eliminate the requirement for original signatures and then and include in that policy that we do a small test of the people that have participated, or there's got to be an extra piece in there, is all I was saying. So when we're choosing A, B, or C, because those are the recommendations laid out to us, that there may be something different.
I have a motion to make that sort of takes A and expands, I think, on what Director Colborn's mentioning. So I'd like to move that policy CP 016 be amended to eliminate the requirement for original signatures by the petitioner, and that staff review the policy to bring more certainty to the people that are signing it. I'm open to amendments.
I don't think so. These are options, alternatives. You may want to consider the policy be brought forward with options to eliminate, it's definitive, right? Maybe the options weren't the greatest options to present, but I think you're going to want to have some discussions about, instead of just eliminating them, because the validity, again, my mind goes to the elections when there has been question, and there has been in different areas, and how challenging the Elections BC and the RCMP have had in validating that stuff. So I just know that's tough. So maybe a higher level option that the policy be brought forward for discussion, a draft policy.
Sure, thanks. I'll make an amendment then. I'll move that the policy CP016 be amended to eliminate the requirement for original signatures by the petitioner, that staff come back with options for the board to review.
Second.
Second, Mr. Director Wally. Discussion? Director Colburn?
I wouldn't be in favor because it does one without fixing the problem essentially. So I would be happier with a more simple one that says that this policy be brought back for further discussion with some different options brought forward by staff.
I'm happy to move my motion. Go with that.
Yeah.
I'll second Julie's motion.
So that the policy be brought back with recommendations from staff. Is that simple enough, or does that?
Yeah, I think I get the concept of the discussion here.
Around this issue? Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion? Director Mawini?
Thank you, Chair. And I'm happy that we are going to look at the policy, and I'm grateful that we did agree to include the e-petition, or the list of signatories, as I called it, from the previous delegation. And really, when I looked at that, I could see that there are issues with an electronic signature collection, because there were people on that list that I know. And it was said that they lived in Vancouver, but I could tell you that they live on Endersby Road. So, among other roads, but, like that. So there were definitely issues. So I would be really hoping that in these options that staff bring forward, that maybe there is an option that meets the needs of a very large and diverse regional district that does have the ability to do some sort of e-signatory. And I think that it's important that we do continue to receive petitions or e-signatory lists, or whatever we want to call them, because at the end of the day, that's part of our strategic priorities, is to be engaging with the communities. And if the communities want to specify one of their concerns to us, I think we need to listen.
Excuse me. Director Von Esch? No? Okay, anybody else? Okay, on Director Colburn's motion, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Okay, number 12. We'll go to Director Mawini.
Exciting. Regional District Policy Review. Move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion?
Well, if I can, Mr. Chair, so there's a motion that we review the policies of the SRD, and as you can see, being a product of a divorce a number of years ago, we carry on with a lot of antiquated, archaic policies inherited, some going back to the 1970s, lots related here to technology, that technology has, has exceeded what the policy speaks to. So I think what we started with was with some real low-hanging fruit, and given the board some options in terms of the Comox Strathcona policies, and looking at a way to work our way through here and maybe pick off the low-hanging fruit right off the bat.
Director Mawini?
Thank you, Chair. I have a question to staff, because there are a few in this list of policies that is attached here. There's a few that are highlighted in green, and those ones seem to be not separated out. Maybe it seems like those ones are maybe more important or relevant still but the alternatives, the options here, A, B, and C, don't really, to my mind, identify that certain ones maybe are more relevant or not and should be included or not. And, you know, I guess my second question would be that maybe we don't need to have all of these policies, but also are we going to replace them? Like, you know, when we're talking about using pesticides or providing a workplace free from harassment and discrimination, like, I don't know, that sounds like a pretty good policy still. So do we already have a different policy that speaks to the same thing?
CO?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the intent of the report is to basically inform the board, first of all, that we're talking many, many, many policies, and to attempt to try to judge the validity of these ancient policies in one meeting would be an enormous task. So staff have taken it upon themselves to say we can divide these into policies by type, and attached to this report are policies dealing with the operations of the board itself. There are many, many other categories, like you say, pesticide use or receipt of correspondence, whatever. And the intent would be, if the board wishes, to bring those back as groupings and start a process. This is going to be a long process, unless you want to say just get rid of all those policies altogether. It'll be a long process, and it will take many, many, many meetings before the board is satisfied that they've had a chance to review all of them in detail.
What about the green?
So, Mr. Chairman, those that are highlighted in green are also attached in full to this report. They all speak to operations of the board itself. If the board wishes to deal with those today, that's fine. Otherwise, you can review them, bring them back. It doesn't really matter to staff. I will remind the board, these are ancient policies, most of them.
There's one on log booming and storage.
Well, grooming and storage?
You got that out of what I said? Wow. I mumble too much, I think.
Okay, Director Lanyon.
So I was intrigued by Mr. Yates' comment, unless you just want to get rid of them all, because I do. I think there's a few there probably that we need to just flag to do fresh ones on. But it's one of those things, like, I didn't even know these existed.
Yeah, I think if this offers any insight, if it helps, or, the way we come up with policies is, we bring them forward on as things reveal themselves and the need for them, and then we end up with a library of them based on that. If you asked, now I'm not going to say that there isn't good reason to have some of these, like there's a cell phone policy here. Well, okay, you need to have a cell phone policy. We have also a cell phone policy, and the cell phone policy from 1996 is going to have no relevance to today, right? So do you want to go, 1 through 20, and we'll bring those? There's going to be lots of low-hanging fruit in those, and we'll say, get rid of log booming and this, that, and the other, and maybe we can thin the herd quickly in a series of meetings if the board can be patient, because I think there's some redundancy in ones that we have. There's some that we just cut bait with, and then we can identify ones that need replaced or upgrading. So if you want, take them in chunks, and we can, every board meeting we can bring 10 and 8 will be chopped and 2 will be there, kind of deal.
Yeah. Director Colburn.
So, and what I'm wondering is if that was the intent behind the wording of option B. If that the staff would go through and say these ones have no validity, or what would be the option that would make that the easiest thing to do? What the CAO was just saying would just be to group them, to bring back a few at a time, to just repeal.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may, I would think option C is by far the easiest. And if the board feels there's a need for policies in the future, we can bring back a policy for the board's consideration. That would be the easiest, not necessarily the best approach.
Director.
Having said that, I think you're correct, Julie. B was the intention of bringing back chunks and just cut and bait with the easy ones.
Director Mawhinney, then Director Lanyon.
Thank you, Chair. I guess what I'm not clear on when I look at this long list of policies is some of them we probably already have another policy that supersedes this.
Cell
And
phones.
some of them, pardon me?
Cell phones.
Cell phones?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, and some of them, maybe there's a law now, like there's a policy about non-smoking. So, I feel like that's actually a law now, so maybe we don't need to have a policy. So I get, from my perspective, I would be curious on which policies are redundant and which policies need updating.
And I think we could do that in chunks, right? Again, if we, I don't know, let's say we brought 10 a meeting, we got a beer garden policy on here, right? Log booming. We'll kind of bring it so we can cut bait with some of them quickly. And then, because again, we don't want to spend oodles of time on this. This doesn't really, fulfill our work dreams either. So I think our motivation is to cut bait with the redundant old ones, thin the herd, and again, bring them in consumable chunks that we don't waste a ton of time here, or bring 10 or so to committee of the wholes or something like that. I don't want to make a career out of this.
Director Lanyon?
I think I would propose that staff who are most familiar with this make a list of the ones you're quite sure we'll want to just kill. And so initially get 50 out of the way. And then of the ones that are left, stratify them into we don't know. And we're pretty sure you still want this, but here's a new version. And I think we could do it in three sittings like that. That really wouldn't be very contentious at all.
I agree. So I think B satisfies that. It gives us the liberty to do that.
Okay, Director Chapman?
Thank you, Chair. We depend on staff to demonstrate their judgment and discretion every day. So why don't we just continue that? I'll move option B, and we can start weeding stuff out. I don't know if we have a motion on the floor already, but.
Still on receipt.
Second.
Oh,
No, we're still on receipt. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Go ahead.
Chair, I move option B.
Director Dahl? Discussion? Director Colburn?
I do have a question, as there are obviously some ones that are right here in front of us that are available for repealing at this meeting right now. Is that something we want to do?
No, I think those ones will be obvious. We'll just chop.
I was just trying to get that list chunked down even quicker, so thank you.
Log booming is going to stay, though. I can promise you that. Yeah.
All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Mawhinney?
Thank you, Chair. I think I'm really looking forward to this review, and I think I just wanted to go back to what our CAO was saying about talking about some of them at a committee of the whole, because I think when it comes to ones which we're not sure about, or if we need to replace them with something, I think discussing that at a committee of the whole, where the point is discussion rather than debate, might be beneficial.
The other thing too, not to belabor this, but some will be CAO policies, some will be board policies too, right? If they're personnel or stuff, so we can cut bait with those too.
Okay. Director Wally, number 13.
Request for financial assistance, Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 147. That report from the CEO be received.
Second.
Director Chapman, discussion?
Whoops.
Director Wally?
Yeah, just to comment on this, just so the board doesn't think I'm a big meanie and never about the village. This Legion's within the village boundary, and they need this equipment to maintain their property, so Valley's delighted to help them out with it. It was an unexpected budget item for my grant and aid budget, and it will leave me with $200 left. But I think it's important I did it. A couple years ago, I gave them $40,000 to rebuild their kitchen, so maybe I'm not as mean as you think I am. But anyway, thank you.
Yeah, I was a little surprised to see this on because we never received any correspondence from the Legion asking for money.
Well, actually, the ladies told me that they had asked you and you'd turned them down, so they came to see me, so I don't know.
Yeah,
Can't believe
no.
what anybody says anymore.
Yeah, it never came to the board. The council, thank you. Never came to council, that's it. Okay, thank you. So on receipt, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. B,
I move that the board approve a grant for the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 147 in the amount of $1,000 to assist with the purchase of lawn care equipment to be paid from the electoral area A grant and aid budget.
Second.
Director Mooney, discussion? All in favor?
Oh, Mr. Chairman,
Oh.
I just want to point out one thing. In that report,
Your microphone?
in that report, Mr. CEO, it puts my limit at 10,000, so this little error there, it's 3,500. You must have got me from last year.
I don't know, I'd have to look at the financial plan, so.
Yeah, anyway, I've got the financial plan right in front of me here. It's the 3,500, but anyway, you can fix it for next time, doesn't matter. I got $200 left.
Hey, we did the all in favor, right? No, all in favor. Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Rice, take bylaw number 1, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to move that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Director Chapman, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I'd like to move option B, that the supplementary report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Director Chapman, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I'd like to move option C, that bylaw number 599 be returned for further consideration by the board at the conclusion of the public notification process.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Mooney, take number 2, please.
Sure. Bylaw number 601, Quadra Island zoning amendment RZ 1C25 Fisherman's Landing, that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
And B, that the report on the public hearing for bylaw number 601 and all related records be received.
Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
Well, I have a question about C. So should I move it and then ask the question?
During discussion.
Okay. That the May 12th, 2025 correspondence from the Hamalco First Nation be received.
Second.
Director Wally, discussion. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I do appreciate this correspondence being attached to the agenda. I have a couple of comments. One of it says May 12th correspondence, but that's after the public hearing. So I'm curious about the legal implications of receiving correspondence, which apparently is dated after the public hearing. And I would also, I feel like I would have greater certainty in receiving this correspondence if the directors could read the email which staff provided to the Hamalco Nation representative. There's a sentence in the very first for the very first sentence in the correspondence, which says, "Thank you for the additional information," but it's unclear to me what that additional information was and if it was included, if it was something that was part of the public hearing process or if it was something extra. So I'm wondering if staff could elaborate on if the nation was referred the amendment application or if there was other information provided, and about the legal implications of receiving this correspondence dated after the public hearing.
Thank you through the chair to the committee. The correspondence that was received isn't considered public correspondence as part of the public hearing record. It is in response to a referral that was sent to Hamalco originally as part of the initial application. Following that, Hamalco did reach out to the SRD staff, and staff had a subsequent conversation with them over the telephone as to what the application was currently proposing and if there were any amendments and what those were. So the response that you're seeing here is a follow-up to staff's telephone conversation with Hamalco, clarifying what that application was as of that day, and Hamalco's response in writing that they did not have any concerns with the application as it was presented. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. That is very helpful. and makes sense why it doesn't have additional correspondence attached.
Okay, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. D,
That bylaw number 601 be given third reading.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. E,
That bylaw number 601, being Quadra Island zoning bylaw 1990, amendment number 152, be reconsidered, finally passed, and adopted.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Kerr is gone. Go to Director Smythe. Would you like to read number 3, please?
So the Strathcona Gars fees and charges that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Second.
Director Chapman, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B,
The bylaw number 602 being a bylaw to amend the rates charges for the use of Strathcona Gardens Recreation Complex be now introduced and read a first time.
Director Chapman, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. C,
That the rules to suspend and bylaw number 602 be given second and third reading.
Director Chapman, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. D,
That bylaw number 602 being Strathcona Gardens Recreation Complex fees and charges, bylaw 2018, amendment number 5, be reconsidered, finally passed and adopted.
Director Chapman, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Dahl, number 4.
That the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Director Chapman, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B,
That bylaw 603 being BC Hydro Licensing Agreement Authorization Bylaw 2025 be reconsidered, finally passed and adopted.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Do we still have quorum? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Nobody else is allowed to leave. Director Von Esch.
Bylaw number 604, Cortez Island solid waste rates. I move that the report from the CAO be received.
Second.
Discussion? Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. I recognize what's trying to be accomplished here. Trying to reduce the taxation impact of the area residents. We, at our solid waste management committee meetings, we know there's some significant costs coming forward in the next 2 or 3 years. And I'm just wondering about the wisdom of reducing the fees versus taking any excess, putting into reserve to help cushion the impact of further increases that are coming down the line.
I think if I may, Mr. Chair, this relates to the change in allocation we had earlier in the year. And so in previous year's allocation, we had charges to services in there. And so we shifted those charges into general government categories. So it relieved charges from individual services. And what we did with Cortez Solid Waste is that relief offset some of the other funds that went to general government. So it was a charge against solid waste, and that's the reduction in there. So I think in this service, again, we have some, this is collection only, but I think we feel comfortable in that. So, and I think the director knows that, you know, the collection rates keep going up a little bit, but we're not in too bad shape with this one. But it reflects the allocation relief in the individual service.
And if I could just add, Chair, if I could just add a point, and Director Chapman's right, the tipping fees are increasing, but just to be clear, this is for the pickup service. So this is the contractor on Cortez that goes up and picks up the garbage.
Okay. And that was on receipt, correct?
Yep.
All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I move that bylaw number 604, being a bylaw to amend the rates for use of the Cortez Island solid waste and recyclable materials collection system, be now introduced and read a first time.
Second.
Dr. Colburn, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
I move that the rules be suspended and bylaw number 604 be given second and third readings.
Director Moini, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. D.
Move that bylaw number 604, being Cortez Island solid waste rates and regulations bylaw 2022, amendment number 2, be now reconsidered, finally passed and adopted.
Director Wally, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Number 6, bylaw. Director Wally.
Bylaw number 605, Sayward Valley Solid Waste Rates. A report from the CEO be received.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B.
Move that bylaw number 605, being a bylaw to amend the rates charged for use of the Sayward Valley Solid Waste Collection Service, be now introduced and read a first time.
Second.
Director Moini, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
Move that the rules be suspended and bylaw number 605 be given second and third readings.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
Finally, I move that bylaw number 605, being Sayward Valley Solid Waste Collection Service Rates and Regulation Bylaw 2018, amendment number 3, be now reconsidered, finally passed and adopted.
Second.
Director Chapman, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Dahl, will you take number 7, please?
The report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Director Chapman, discussion. Director Wally?
Just a question for staff, out of my curiosity, it doesn't really affect me any, but what's the total amount per 100,000 that Staff Surrounded Gardens contributors will be paying this year, with this included?
Well, it's already in the financial plan. I don't know what that number is, but what we have done in regional districts and municipalities, if you're going to borrow funds, you need the approval of the electors. The irony with this is the funding is already in the financial plan, but this is for the borrowing authority, and I don't know off the top of my head what that per 100,000 is.
Okay.
Okay, on receipt. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
The bylaw number 607, being a bylaw to authorize the borrowing of funds for redevelopment of the Strathcona Gardens Recreation Facility, be now introduced and read a first time.
Second.
Director Chapman, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? One opposed? Director Moini? The motion is carried. C.
That the rules be suspended and bylaw number 607 be given second and third readings.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? One opposed. Director Moini? The motion is carried. D.
That elector approval of bylaw number 607 be authorized to be obtained using an alternative approval process.
Second.
Director Chapman, discussion. Director Wally? Microphone, please.
Just a question for my own information here. How do we notify the public of that? I guess in Campbell River, would you do it through the newspaper? Is that how it's done? And a little community like Sayward eventually takes place that doesn't get the newspaper, how will you do it there?
Well, this wouldn't go to Sayward.
No, I realize that, but just a curious.
Newspaper, yeah.
And we don't get newspapers?
Well, we would find other ways to communicate, but there's legislative requirements, and for this, we'll do the newspaper.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none? Carried. D. Did we do D?
Oh, yes.
That was D. I was so close. But let's do it again. No. Number 8, Director Rice.
Item 8, bylaw number 608, Campbell River Storm Hockey Club license. I'd like to move that the report from the Chief Administration Officer be received.
Director Chapman, discussion? Director Mawhinney.
Thanks, Chair. I had a question. I was reading over the contract and I looked at the report to the commission in March, and it didn't include mention of changing the advertising section of the contract, but that is being changed now. So I was curious, 2 things about that. I guess if there was a reasoning for making the changes to the advertising section of the contract, and just to confirm, I'm assuming that the revenue from the advertising belongs to the Storm Hockey Club?
Yeah, Robin's here. He can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what the Storm is offering the regional district some access to the advertising. We have an agreement with the Storm that provides in their current contract a revenue for board advertising, and I think there's an amendment in there that the Storm will provide something to us. Am I correct?
Yeah, no, in that section, in the advertising, there is some language change regarding tickets for regular season games that can be dispersed. In addition to, there is some language regarding playoff games.
And I thought there was a removal of a limited, like there was a limited number previously of advertising that could be happening, and now it's just doesn't have a number?
I'd have to review that.
Okay.
Right now, the revenue from the boards, the Storm receive the revenue that's generated from the boards.
Okay. Any further discussion on receipt? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
Like to move option B, that bylaw number 608, being a bylaw to authorize an amendment to the licensing agreement with the Campbell River Storm Hockey Club be now introduced and read a first time.
Second.
Director Wally, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
Like to move option C, that the rules be suspended and bylaw number 608 be given second and third readings.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
Like to move option D, that bylaw number 608 being the Campbell River Storm Licensing Agreement Authorization bylaw amendment number 1 be now reconsidered, finally passed and adopted.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Director Dahl, do you want to take number 9, please?
Reconsideration of motions, that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Director Chapman, discussion? Director Wally?
Yeah, I'm not objecting to I don't object to this amendment. It takes 2/3 majority anyways. It doesn't make much difference. I think that last time that we had it, it was by the grace of God that it went through when we didn't have 2/3. But I would like to bring to the board's attention what I think might be another potential problem, and that is not everybody who is online has the bandwidth to be able to put their image up there. It sometimes will affect their voice transmission, make it fuzzy, so they turn it off. I often turn mine off, it's solid waste. And when the question's called, all in favor and opposed, well, if they don't voice opposition, it's taken for granted that they were in favor, but maybe they're out getting a coffee or who knows what, which often happens, and I think we've seen that happen. So my suggestion is that we, when we're amending it for the reconsideration, we also amend it so that those who don't have an image visible that we can look at, we just poll them and ask them, how do you vote on this? And that would relieve any possibility of an error in the vote. So I'm not sure, staff, how we might change that wording.
Well, I think there's a challenge with that. There's clearly directors do that intentionally, though. And so that's why the act says, I'm going to, paraphrase, if you don't say yes or no, it's a yes. So I understand what you're saying, but that's intentionally done many, many times. And we've seen
We
it
only
here.
have a couple at home, though, a couple of people generally, and we don't even know if they're present. Like here, if you get up and leave, you're not counted as part of the vote.
What I'm saying is that can be intentional.
Yeah, I understand.
So how do you take their ability away? I don't even know legislatively if you can, if they say nothing.
Mr. Yates.
Well, Mr. Chairman, there is currently in your procedure bylaw the ability for the chair to ask directors individually if the voting is uncertain. In other words, if the chair is not convinced that all directors are able to participate or that their voices are somehow being restricted, the chair can poll directors individually to get the true result of whatever vote is on the floor.
Yeah, I'm just suggesting that we do that.
And I'm going to add one more thing to it, because we had this experience at the last meeting and the meeting before with Director Lott. He was non-responsive.
Right.
That means it's a yes vote.
No, that means he's not here.
He's online.
Yeah, but that's
And-
what I'm saying. That's what we got to change. I mean, just because you click in, I mean, you can take a holiday if you want.
I realize that. So, but that can be intentional.
Yeah, but can't we change the procedure bylaw to eliminate that? Because that throws the vote out. That's not right.
If it's the board's will, we can bring something on that. I think that can work for and against you at times. I mean, is your mic working? Are you not there? Are you intentionally not doing it? Like, I don't know. It's hard to get in people's head about what their intention. Maybe Director Lott was there and he just didn't want to speak.
But,
and
but
that's
don't
yes.
forget, the chair has the right to disconnect somebody if it's not working.
Who says it's not working? He's just not responding.
He's not responding, it's not working.
You're not talking. I mean, I'm just saying there's some challenges with that. It's not that easy, but
Okay, but you're going to bring this back anyway to the board, right?
if there's a motion to, we can.
Yeah.
This is the bylaw to amend whether the reconsideration be done to change it to the following meeting. But if there's a motion to bring, voting considerations or polling of the chair, we can certainly do that.
Okay, well, Mr. Chair, when the appropriate time arrives, I'll make a little motion for that.
Very well. Still on receipt?
I wanted to say, if you can log yourself out, then you're not attending the meeting anymore. But if you show up on the screen as attending the meeting, you vote. And if you don't vote, then you're in favor. If you don't want to.
Yeah, I tend to agree with
You want to go have lunch at the restaurant down the street, log yourself out of the meeting. Don't just turn your camera off and walk away.
Yeah, because a bigger challenge comes in if let's say we cut him off, Director Wally, you said, like, you're not responsive, so we cut him off. And then the minutes have to represent that the person left the meeting. Well, they're going to say, I didn't mean to leave the meeting. Like, there's,
It could be on the phone.
yeah.
Yeah, they can log themselves back in again. I mean, that's no problem.
But maybe they don't want to be logged off, right? I don't know. I think it's very challenging to draw a line in the sand. If you show up on the screen, you're at the meeting, and whether you choose to speak or unmute or cut somebody off of a vote because of that, I think there might be some implications to that.
Okay, well, I'll leave it to the board. Someone else wants to make the motion, I'll vote in favor of it. Otherwise, I'll forget it.
Okay, still on receipt? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B.
The bylaw number 609 being a bylaw to amend the procedures applicable to meetings of the regional board and its committees be now introduced and read a first time.
Director Chapman, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. C.
That the rules be suspended and bylaw number 609 be given a second and third reading.
Director Chapman, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
That bylaw number 609 be returned for further consideration by the board following the conclusion of the public notification period.
Second.
Director Goulburn, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Director Von Esch, number 10.
Was there a motion from Director Wally?
No, I thought I'd leave it to somebody else, and I'll vote in favor, but I'm not sure what the will of the board was on this, so I thought I'm maybe not the guy to do it.
Okay, thank you. Bylaw number 610, Cortez Island First Responder Service. Move that the report from the CAO be received.
Director Chapman, discussion. All in favor? Opposed?
I move that bylaw number 610, being a bylaw to authorize entering into an agreement for the provision of the first responder service on Cortez Island, be now introduced and read a first time.
Director Mawini, discussion. Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. Is there, I read through this, and it was late last night, I admit, but is there a provision where they are going to report back as to how they used the funds? Is there any level of financial accountability for the monies being granted?
Through the chair, as per our contract, the Cortez Island Firefighters Association is required to provide an annual report on last year's operation for both the fire service and first responder service. But in my years here, that report has never been on time. We just received that report yesterday.
Sheriff, can I follow up and expose myself for missing it? But is it written in the agreement that they provide a report?
Through the chair, yes. It's in both agreements that they provide a report on each service by May 1st, 2025, as well as a third-party audit of all financial operations, and the regional district has full authorization to look at their books at any time.
Okay, still on receipt? No. On B, sorry, I forgot. Okay, all in favor of B? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. C.
Move that the rules be suspended and bylaw number 610 be given second and third readings.
Second.
Director Colburn, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. D.
Move that bylaw number 610, being Cortez Island First Responder Service Agreement Authorization Bylaw 2025, be reconsidered, finally passed and adopted.
Director Wally, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. Correspondence. Okay, we'll receive from 1 to 3.
So moved.
Director Mawini, discussion? Director Von Esch? No, sorry. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Cortez Housing Society, Director Von Esch.
Thank you, Chair. Move that the report from Director Van Esch regarding the proposed tree planting project on Cortez Island be received.
Second.
I can just speak to it. This is just a request for a letter of support from the regional district for a grant that the regional district, or that the Cortez Housing Society is applying for a tree planting project on their Rainbow Ridge property. And I'll have a motion once it's received.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried.
I'll move that SRD staff work with the Cortez Housing Society to provide a letter of support for the Growing Canada's Community Canopy project.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Director Mawini, discussion? Director Mawini?
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say that the Cortez Island Housing Society constantly inspires me, and I'm really excited that they're working on or hoping to plant native and climate resilient species, and I'm really in favor of providing this letter of support.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion's carried. Addendum item, Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. 2025 UBCM Convention and Ministerial Meetings. Move that the report from the Chief Administrative Officer be received.
Second. Should we vote that the addendum be considered for?
That one?
Move that the addendum be considered.
Second.
Okay.
Discussion. Director Colburn? No? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried. B,
Do we want to move that the amendment be considered?
Now you're at A.
We just did that.
Now you're at A.
now you're at A, sorry.
Okay, so
I
we
didn't mean to
voted on that.
confuse you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so now we're on A. I repeat what I said for item A in its entirety.
In its entirety.
Second.
There we go. Second, Director Colburn. Discussion.
If I may, Mr. Chair, so UBCM convention coming up and their rules again and deadline dates about submissions for the premier and meetings with ministers. There's a deadline date of, I believe, June 20th that we need to have topics and subjects in. And these will just be because the municipalities will have their own. So if folks can lend their mind to items. Now, we'll be a little bit organic with this because we have to, because of timing and submissions and providing background. But what we'd like to, unless people have things right on the top of their mind that they would like staff to start working on, is item topics for the premier and specific ministers. So we can get a topic and we can work with the director and create some background information to have a submission come June 20th. And the subsequent to that, there's the meetings with the staff, which are much easier to get. But the meetings with the premier are very difficult to get. We haven't had any success here in the last 10 years. And ministers, more difficult. We've had some success with that. But if, again, folks can think of things, topics, and we can work on expanding those, and we can connect with you, unless you have some items right off the top of your mind, I'm happy to receive them.
What, Director Colburn?
I haven't asked about, and this is my UBCM thing every single year, is what is the follow-up been from the previous year's meetings? Because we know we get a letter that says, thank you for visiting. And then what actually has been done? So I know that last year I was in meetings on behalf of the SRD regarding hydro to Cayuga-Chicklesett and that project. Also about hydro security on the West Coast after, the 2022 7-day power outage. So what I'm wondering is, I don't have any topics for consideration right now, but has there actually been any movement on any of the meetings is what I'd like to know, because if not, then maybe a follow-up should be considered with maybe a different angle or I'll give you an example. Village of Sabalis went to Ministry of Forests for 8 years before there was an actual real investment in really critical road infrastructure, and that was a partnership between two ministries. So it takes a lot of advocacy and a lot of meetings to get those things going, in my experience. So that's the preamble.
So that is a good point. And what we will do, and what we generally always do, is take those old ones and forward them anyways to continue the advocacy and push forward. So we just do that anyways, whether we get accepted or not, and try and identify the specific ministers and get meetings with them on those topics. But so right now, looking for anything new, because I'll automatically do the reruns on that. But if you can think of things, or if Edith can reach out, if you have ideas in your drive home, or we wake up tomorrow, whatever that be, please send them in, and we will work, individually to get these. And then I believe, Edith, correct me if I'm wrong, we will have these, our board meeting is prior to the deadline date?
So the actual deadline date is July 2nd, but because we're changing things up a little bit this year and looking for your ideas to come to us, and then we'll build up our backgrounders, we've put a June 20th deadline so that we can return the items to the June 25th board meeting.
Yes,
June
and
25th.
so we'll take those topics, those ministers, and we'll put something together for the board's review, and let the board make some amendments if they wish to individuals. So So, and then we'll have 2 days to make those amendments, which is fine, and then we can submit them for the July deadline date. So, again, we're just looking to populate some meetings, some projects awareness, and develop some background on it.
I would like to suggest, are we allowed to say it now?
Yeah, just let them fly, yeah.
I have still and advocating for connectivity down Highway 19 to Port Hardy, cell phone coverage.
Thank you, it's a good start.
Director Von Esch and then Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair.
What about
I'd like to add rural housing needs.
Oh, you too. Yeah, you too. Sorry.
Thank you.
And just a bit of background on that, I think both federally and provincially, a lot of the solutions are kind of have an urban lens to them. And I think there's a real opportunity to find solutions in housing that really meet the needs of rural communities.
Director Rice and then Director Chapman.
Thank you, Chair. What I would be looking for, and I think we were talking this morning about it, Dave, is it Indigenous relationships? Basically, what we're finding out is that when a property's been red flagged for potential, First Nations areas of interests, how do the owners unravel that? And it's becoming quite challenging. So I don't know if that's something that we would like to start considering.
Yeah, thank you. Anything's good. I'm happy to take all this stuff and put together a little briefing for the board's review and comment.
Yeah, I see them. Oh, we're still on A, receipt. Let's get that over with first, and then we'll go back. Call the question. All in favor? No? Of receipt.
If I can comment, my comment would be that I think that B isn't valid. I think giving the CAO a list during the conversation would be better, because to me, B reads that a request is made to these ministries, and we don't necessarily want to do that. The CAO is going to go away and then come back to us, and then we'll pick which ideas we want to go to is that the proper?
Yeah, thank you. That's the intent. So I just want topics, and we'll develop those and bring them back.
Okay, Director Chapman, then Director Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I think the issue of the slope stability issue going on Forest Road into Zabellas should be up there, first and foremost, if not.
Agreed. Okay, Director Koopman. Mr. Koopman. Yeah, and then we'll go to Director Davis.
Through the chair on that one, so the regional district has been given $50,000 from the province to undertake a feasibility study on mitigation options for that area. We currently have a request for a proposal out with a deadline of May 30th.
Perfect. Director Davis.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I like your idea about greater cell connectivity, and I'd like to extend that to the road from Campbell River to Gold River and the Head Bay Forest Service Road. I've advocated for it in the past, so I'd just like to expand that, if that sounds good to you.
Yeah, I have no problem with that at all. So Highway 28, sure. Highway 28 as well as 19.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
I've always found it frustrating how poor our cellular connectivity is in Canada, because if you've traveled anywhere else, it seems like less developed nations have better connectivity than we do. So, yeah, it's about time.
Agreed.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Director Mawhinney?
Thank you, Chair. I'm not sure if there are other municipalities or areas that are facing a potential infrastructure deficit, but I can tell you that from Area C, we certainly are, and I think it's something that we raised last year. So maybe it's a follow-up, or maybe it's another angle of attack on the same topic.
Okay. So on receipt, all in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, motion is carried.
And just on that, Mr. Chair, if anyone has any ideas that they think of on their drive home or tomorrow or on the weekend or something, please email me and we can develop some background on
Are
it.
we skipping B altogether? Yeah, we'll skip B altogether and go to C. Director Chapman.
Well, I think we have those, Mr. Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think we need C. Have a good start here
Okay.
anyways, and hopefully directors will populate some more ideas for me.
Okay,
I refuse to read C.
I appreciate that in its entirety.
We weren't going to accept it anyways, so.
I'll move termination.
Second.
Third, do I have a fourth for termination? There we go. All in favor? Oh, first, do you want to discuss it? No? Absolutely. Let's get into it. Thanks, we're terminated.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Director Davis.
Hi, Martin.